are Radio with Pictures from the Field, and we are producing this from our Western Division consultation. Here with me, all the way from Lautoka, Inise Adikuila, representing the Songo Wakamarama Ba province and also the district of Lautoka, and with her is Bonita from the Pacific Rainbows Advocacy Network. Thank you, ladies. I believe for the past 2 days you have been talking about one of the main important issues that women and the marginalized women are facing when it comes to women's representation from the community level to the district level, to the provincial level, and also to the national level. For you, Inise, can you share with us your experiences on this?
Uneven representation of gender in village, Tikina councils, which I think we should have a 30% representative of gender in these councils.
You mean women?
Yes,
taking
we need
part.
women and youth in these councils. In SIDO, it talks about changing culture patterns in order to advance women's participation. So, Turangani Koros are there to implement what is stated in the gender policy. And they are paid by the government to see that this is implementation is done in the village level. I believe it's all in the villages of the Western Division that women's voice are not heard. It goes up to the Turangani Koro, and from there up to provincial level to the government, it's not being heard. It's not taken up from there.
So what do you think? Why do you think this is important? Women taking part?
This is important because women's participation, we women are the backbone of our homes, our country. We should be heard. We should be given to voice our concern, our issues like we are raising it today. We should be given the chance to voice our concern in all those councils.
Thank you, Inise. So, in your community, I believe you're from one of the village setting and also representing some, the other women also from your village and also your district. When it comes to young women's participation in decision making, how are you involving young women into this process?
Young women are needed because they are the future leaders. And even representation from them too is needed because they have a better ideas of what they're going through. They cannot voice their concern to their mothers. Some of them cannot voice their concern to their mothers or their issues. In representing them in youth groups, they might be able to voice their issues there. And then the youth leaders can take them up to a certain level to be heard in the community.
Thank you very much, Inise. And for you, Bonita, when it comes to the representation of women in the marginalized area, can you please share with us what is your experience on this?
Well, basically, to me, I think there's not much of a difference. Probably the difference is within the setting. That is probably we are located in an urban setting and others are located in Itake setting. But the main issue around this topic is the representation. And that is the important part. Because when you are represented at a body, then you are guaranteed a space, you are guaranteed a voice. And within our administration level here in Lautoka, we've seen them emphasizing on gender equality, but then we do not know how do they interpret the term gender as a universal term, and how it is defined to them. Because we also see that gender encompasses women of diverse background, and we've also seen our CEDAW laws talking about marginalized women and the recognition for women, whether it is in rural or in urban setting. Still, there needs to be an even representation of people within the bodies of decision making, and this is a very serious need and issue that we need to address as women.
Thank you very much. Inise talked about an interesting point that you raised was culture. So do you think when it comes to our culture, the Fijian culture, is this one of the barriers for the representation of women?
Probably I can say that cultural values are just an underlining excuse to say those sort of comments. But Fiji have rectified and have signed CEDAW, and according to CEDAW laws and implemented policies are encouraged just so that it can foster greater participation and even participation of women. And if Fiji have rectified this, then I think that there's a great responsibility for Fiji government to streamline its approach and adopt the national gender policy and recognize the importance of including everyone in the representation.
Thank you very much, Bonita. And for you, Inise, going back to the question, linking you to what Bonita has mentioned, you talked about culture. So what is it? Is it the culture, the barrier when it comes to women's representation, including women in decision making?
I believe it's the culture. The culture is the barrier, because we have the chiefly system, and we have this hierarchy which doesn't allow women to speak up, and youth. And with that, that's a barrier from us if we are living in the villages. For urban centers, it's a different setup.
Okay. So what happens when women are not there in the Mbosevakoro, in the village meeting?
Whatever the man says in the meeting goes. And with that, I'm glad this gender policy states that we have to have greater presentation from the women, because women knows better what goes on in the home than the men. That's what I believe. We should have a greater presentation in village council, Ikina council, and in the provincial council as well.
Thank you very much, Inise. As for you, Bonita, representing the Rainbow's Advocacy Network, what do you think you should be doing more, or the community should be doing more in
advancing women's participation?
Yes, in advancing women's participation, and also when it comes to representation in all process. Thank you.
I think the adoption of the gender policy will play the biggest role, because the gender policy, as we can see, is probably bridging the gap of CEDAW. And within the gender policy, it encourages the changing of social structure, the changing of cultural structure. So these bodies can change. And as for women leaders, we are representing many people. We are entitled to the people that we represent. So since these laws are telling us that we can change laws, I think it's about time, and that as leaders that sitting in a room, we can lobby for a change in law, we can lobby for a change in legislation, just that it can ensure our representation within this decision making. And if they want to use the term gender inequality or gender equality, then I think that they need to really define it in the very meaningful meaning that encompasses all.
Thank you very much, Bonita. So we can see, as Fiji have approved the national gender policy, there is still loopholes when it comes to the representation of women in decision making, and also start from the family and the community. And even we're fortunate, Fiji has now, we have almost 8% of women's representation in the parliament. So what do you think when it comes to young women's representation, the marginalized groups representation? What do you think we should be doing more as a community and also as a nation?
To me, I feel that even now that we've seen an increase in representation in parliament, still, I do not say this bad, but I see that even the women that are in parliament are not doing much for the women here in the community. They've been saying this before the election, and now that they are in parliament, they're saying a different thing. So I think that there is a stronger need for a recognition of a new law that can probably say 50% men, 50% women. Let's have this in parliament. This is what the gender policy is encouraging. We need to take ownership of this. And the government of the day has adopted it. Therefore, streamline private, public entities to adopt this gender policy.
Thank you very much, Bonita. For us, Family Pacific, during the election last year, we conduct a survey, interviews around our centers, where we interview women leaders. We did not ask them who did they vote for, but we did ask them, was it a man or a female they voted for. But then, to our surprise, it came, most of them, even though they're part of our network, even though they're part of the bigger movement, they still vote for a man. So what do you think, we should be doing about this? What is the gap?
I think the women themselves, as to my personal opinion, I see that there's a division of women. There's empowered women and there's disempowered women. Women that are empowered are collaborating among each other. They are working with each other. We've seen consultation here in Lautoka, in the Western Division, in the Northern Division. We are all working together. So I think if other women, the women that are left out, can be encouraged to come in and work together, I think we can make a very strong stand and probably push forward for more representation of women.
Thank you very much, Bonita. You are also part of the Fiji Young Women's Forum. Yes. And I believe before the election last year, the Fiji Young Women's Forum have been conducting a consultation with all the young women's reps around Fiji. And also we did launch a book. So can you please just share with us your experiences on this?
The book, which is called My Guide to Voting, was launched late last year towards the election because we wanted to encourage more women to participate. Now that we are seeing women participating in political spaces, I see that they are not defining their status within these political spaces. They are in these spaces, but they are not sure who to vote for. So I think that we women need to talk to other women and tell them that, see, if you want your issue better represented, who are you going to choose? Are you going to choose the men or are you going to choose the women? Who do you think is going to do better? Because I always believe that if you want something done, then ask a man. But if you want something done more properly, then you have to ask a woman.
Well, thank you very much, Bonita. As for you, Inise, what do you think? Do you have any suggestion on moving forward, especially when it comes to women taking part in the village meeting, working with the Turangani Koro in order to voice women's issues across?
Yes, I believe we should raise our issues with the Turangani Koro and see that it's taken up. some Turanganikoros don't even listen to the women. With them to learn all this gender policy, they should know better. And some Turanganikoros, I believe, are chosen from their status in the villages. They don't know the laws, the rules to follow. So I believe awareness should be given to them to know what is the gender policy and the laws of Fiji regarding the women.
Thank you very much, Inise and Bonita. And that was our Radio with Pictures from the Field here at the Western Division Consultation in Nandi, Naka.